What is good? My name is Esther. I'm 20 years old, and I'm gonna be sharing my story today. Um, on the craziest trip, most W trip of my life ever, and how I met Christ. And I know those two don't seem to go together, but just hang tight. I'm gonna explain the lore for anyone who is interested. Um, so some background: I grew up in a pretty Christian-based home, but I was surrounded by a broken family. There was a lot of fighting and a lot of anger. So that was just my early exposure to love, I guess. And I also grew up in a pretty hypocritical Korean church. Yeah, there was just a lot of people there that didn't portray the love of Christ properly. There's a lot of drama, and yeah, so during that time of my life, this is like up until COVID, I attempted to like kind of pursue a relationship with God, but only because I was kind of told to and I didn't know why. And it wasn't because I desired to, but just because the people around me were telling me that I needed to, and I didn't know why. So yeah, after COVID, I just quickly stopped going to church, and then I just instantly went towards the world, and I chased after the world. So throughout this kind of chasing, I essentially became my own god, and I constructed my identity myself. And whether that was like a portfolio of like crazy like YOLO experiences, like my music, my love for music, or I don't know, relationships too. They were like a big part of what I accounted for my identity, my friendships, um, swag, like it was just everything that was very temporary, always temporary, and because of that, I was never able to um, sit still. I was never able to have peace just being still, and because I was just trying to find myself through these things that were very fleeting, and just chasing after these highs. So up until this summer, um, I was just very involved in the raving scene, the raving lifestyle. Um, I remember like my first rave was um, like I think like freshman year of college. No, it was the summer. It was the summer of my senior year in like high school. Like I just graduated, and my friend at the time, which I ended up rooming with the my first year in college, she invited me to a rave. It was like Millennium, and it was my first time I ever had exposure to EDM like that. I listened to it a little bit as a child, but just like being there is like a completely different experience. I had a lot of people I knew there, and it was the first time I did Molly. And obviously, like the first time you do Molly, it feels like the best day of your life, and that's how I would describe it to people. And I just like I was sucked in from there. Like since that day, I just only started listening to like EDM, and I just fell in love with like this community there, this like sense of community and unity, the plur environments, um, where everyone was just like so nice to each other, and everyone was just like on drugs, um, and it was just very like it felt very freeing. But I noticed I kind of realized that like it wasn't a sustainable lifestyle because um, how I became after I started raving is like my whole purpose, like literally like my whole like my purpose for life was just to try to get like the highest high, I guess, at these raves. Um, that lasted for like 3 years. I was just spending all my FAFSA on these raves, and my parents didn't know, and I was like starting to do a lot more drugs, and I kind of built my way up the hierarchy of drug usage, and then I began mixing stuff. Um, I thought I honestly thought it was like very like it was like so much excitement coming from the ability to like mix different things and try to get like different highs from it. Like I was sucked in, and there was a point where I was very involved in the lifestyle, and when you're involved in it, you're also involved with a lot of drug usage. So it was this summer when I decided to take acid for the first time. And I've done psychedelics. I did shrooms before, and I've always had like kind of like bad trips on them. But with the mindset that I had back then, like once I like had a bad trip, but I was able to like get over it, my mindset was like, oh, like it can't phase me then, because I like knew I could get over it, and that kind of built like this big ego in myself that like nothing could like, I don't know, nothing could really like phase my mentality. So yeah, that this summer I took the acid, and I took it with my boyfriend at the time. We're not together anymore, but I took it with my boyfriend at the time, and we're kind of on the same lifestyle path of just having having the fun that we knew was fun at this time. Um, and and I took the acid, and the moment I took it, um, I was like starting to come up, and um, my boyfriend at the time was like, he already like came up, but I was like trying to come up, and it wasn't like hitting as fast. So I think it was like an hour in or something, but uh, we start seeing like this green like little stink bug like crawling on my bed, and I'm like kind of tripping at this time, so I'm like letting it crawl on me, because I'm like, wow, it's so beautiful, so green and beautiful, and I was just like letting it crawl on me, and I just remember like I literally don't know exactly like what I was thinking about, but um I let the bug outside because I wanted it to be like one with nature again. And the moment I like let it outside, I don't remember exactly anything that happened after that. I think that's when it like really hit me. And I just remember like after that, I have very like fragments of memory, but I think it was like a couple hours in, and I just remember being on the floor, and I I felt like I was in a completely like different reality, if that makes sense. Like I felt like my whole life was a lie, and like my whole life was leading up to this very moment, and I felt like the only consciousness in the entire universe, and that I was being watched from like a sadistic like entity, like a very evil sadistic entity, and that they were watching me um in my apartment, and my apartment and everything outside of it was just their world on puppet strings, and and that time was ticking like a time bomb, and I had to find a way to escape this reality, this time bomb of a world before it exploded. Like this is the advice I had, and during that time I just remember feeling like this perpetual feeling of just like anxiety like the anxiety that a ticking time bomb would have, knowing that everyone that they loved and everything that they experienced um, up until this point was just all a facade. So I was going through it. I was going through it during that time, and I was still tripping, and it was like I don't know, it was pretty deep in, and but I think it wasn't like past like 12 hours or something, and I was just feeling like that. So at the time my boyfriend was like trying to comfort me, but obviously like I was not there. So he ended up like we ended up going to his house, and he ended up driving me to his house in my car. And I remember like being in the car, and I was trying to like swerve the car and stuff, trying to take different exits to escape this reality. Um, and we almost died like a lot of times that night trying to get it, like almost got into an accident, but thankfully we made it safe to his house. And then I just remember uh, like it didn't get any better. Like when we got to his house, um that's when things started getting really like really like I can't even explain it to words, but um I just remember like being upstairs, and before we went upstairs, like his friend told me, I don't know if I was tripping, like I don't know if he actually told me this, but they said something about his gun like being upstairs, and just being in that mindset and hearing that, I thought like, oh, everyone's gonna die tonight. So I was upstairs, like, and we went upstairs, and then I was still like tripping pretty hard. I wasn't like getting visuals or anything, but I was just convinced I was still in this reality, and I was hearing voices, and I felt very demonic like presences, just all around me, just laughing at me, um, telling me that I was never gonna be able to like escape and stuff. So like we're upstairs, and I'm like trying to just I'm trying to go through it on my own, but I think I realized that like I can't do it myself, and then I thought that my boyfriend was Jesus, and that like at least like, and then I remember thinking like at least like Jesus is here like walking through like this hell with me. I felt like I was genuinely like in hell, and the presence of God was non-existent in there. There was no comfort. There was only like agony and pain, and like I could hear screaming. And I remember like thinking like, oh, my he had like he had a Bible in his room during that time, and I remember like trying to read it, and like the letters were flying everywhere, and I thought like if I could finish it in one go, then I would finally escape this reality. Um, so I was literally like I was insane, and it didn't feel like 3 days, but that happened for 3 days. I was at my house and his house, and we're going back and forth for these 3 days, just trying to he was trying to just make me comfortable, but obviously I was not in the right state. And for those 3 days, I couldn't eat anything. I couldn't drink any water because I thought the water was like the water was blood, and every time I drank it, it tastes like blood. And it just felt so hot. And yeah, for those 3 days, like I was extremely scuffed. I thought I was cooked for life. And yeah, people were pretty convinced that I was gonna end up in a psych ward and that I was gone. But on the third day, um, my boyfriend at that time ends up taking me to my parents' house, because I thought like, okay, maybe like the way to escape is to like drive down to the church I grew up with and like do something there. But we ended up there, and they were obviously closed, and like so, and it was like 4 a.m. So he just ended up taking me to my parents' house, and that was the greatest, most smartest, um, blessed decision that he made. Because once we went up to my parents' house, I just remember like standing in front of the door and thinking that like, oh, this is not the way, like this is not the way out. um and I just felt like even more like of an evil presence coming out from my like childhood home. But my parents opened the door, and it's like 4 a.m., and they don't know about any of my tattoos. They didn't know. They're just so confused and like shocked, but they at the end of the day they just wanted to make sure that I was okay. So he ended up telling them like the situation. But like I wouldn't let them touch me, or I wouldn't let them like I would just like twitch or flinch every time they tried to get near me. I thought they were like demons. I thought everybody was a demon except for, yeah. So I don't know. They just ended up taking me to the ER because they didn't know what to do. And I'm so thankful they took me to the ER instead of the psych ward, because if they took me to the psych ward, I would probably um, not be normal. So I went to the ER on that third day, and my dad was driving, and I remember I was just still like hallucinating so hard. Like I was looking at my dad, and he was twitching, like twitching, like how people do when, I don't know, you see like those like exorcism movies. Um, like the car was just driving itself, and my dad was just tweaking, and I was just like singing praise songs like on my phone. Like it was just like my perspective of everything was just like I was not there. And but we ended up going to the ER, and they admitted me in, and they were doing like a urine test, and I remember like pissing out like straight blood because my kidney was failing because I didn't drink any water for 3 days. um and I was still kind of crazy, so I like dumped that sample out because I thought like everyone was against me. But yeah, they had to test it again, and they're like, yeah, you're just I don't remember exactly what they said, but they just gave me IVs, and they sent me home with like um like meds for like anxiety, because I couldn't sleep for those 3 days as well. um and they sent me like antibiotics for like my kidney. So I remember just feeling instantly better though when they put the IVs in me. I think I was just like severely dehydrated and still under the effects of the psychedelic, even though they had found it no trace in me. um I was tripping for 3 days straight. And for reference, like a dose is only supposed to last like 8 to 12 hours, and I only took like one tab. My boyfriend at the time took the same amount as me, so I was like, so yeah, everybody just thought it was like they couldn't explain what happened. But once I went home, I began recovering, just trying to recover, and that whole month is like a complete blur to me. I don't really remember exactly what happened during that month, but I just remember that every time I tried to sleep, um, like I would feel like my soul was getting ripped out of my body, and I still felt like I still felt all these like demonic entities around me during the whole month I thought like my parents were still like not my parents, and my parents were very patient with me. They were just praying for me the whole time. I don't remember exactly how they handled it, but they did a good job because without them, I would not be here. And I just remember in that month, my brother came to try to comfort me, but at the time, like I wasn't really close with my brother, and he was like very Christian where um, in a way where in that state that I was, like I probably did not need as much exposure to um, a lot of that stuff. I think it made me a little bit more like crazy. But he ended up like taking me to this church, me and my boyfriend at the time, and I remember like at that church, I thought like I felt so much peace, and I felt like I could finally sleep because I wasn't able to sleep for like a month. And I ended up like falling asleep during the sermon after like bawling my eyes out, but I was still not in a good mental state. So after that like service, like my boyfriend at the time like carried me back home, um, and they thought like my brother at the time and my boyfriend at the time thought like I was chilling, so they just left me at my apartment. And I thought like for me, I thought like, oh, I'm finally done with my time here, so like now I can finally be free and escape. I still thought I was stuck in this like this trap. So I tried to escape by putting on this empty backpack, try to metaphorically like go to God with nothing, um, holding my phone out, playing these praise songs, and I was just like waddling in the streets of Seattle. I routed my phone to the church, and I just walked there. It was like over a 2 hour walk, but my phone was like at 5%, so I just kept walking, and like I was just walking on the wrong side of the road. There were cars trying to hit me. There were points where I just closed my eyes and started walking, like trying to like surrender my life to God, um, in a way that I thought I had to, because I was kind of crazy. Um, so after my phone died while I was walking, I didn't know where to go, so I just threw my phone on the ground. I threw my backpack on the ground. I threw my glasses on the ground, and I just kept walking with my eyes closed, just letting wherever my feet went take me. And I ended up passing out like in the middle of Seattle, um, just on the concrete, just bathing in the sun. I was like, this is it. And this old couple ended up finding me and asking me if I was okay, and they're trying to call the ER, I think. But I was just sitting there waiting for whoever to come save me at the time, and my brother actually came, and I was like, I was like, what the heck? I didn't even call my brother on their phone, but he ended up coming. And yeah, I got in his car and he took me back home to my family's, and I started recovering a little bit more. After I got better, I asked my brother like how he found me, and he said like someone picked up my phone and called him, which is crazy because my phone was dead. I don't know how they like got in, but it was a miracle that I was found by my brother and brought back home. Um, and I started recovering a little bit more. And after like a good like month and a half ish, I think, um, I felt a lot. I felt a lot more sober minded, but I still couldn't. I was still like, I couldn't go outside. I couldn't talk to people. I was so broken and like traumatized from everything that happened during that month. Even though I was not hearing or like hallucinating anymore, my brain was just like it was just not it was not normal, you know. Um, but I remember this specific moment where it felt really healing. And it's when I was in my apartment, probably like around a month and a half ish after the whole thing happened, and um, like my parents were trying to help me situate back into my apartment because I just moved here, and it was my me and my mom and my dad and my boyfriend at the time. We're just sitting down and we're just like laughing together about something, and it was like the first time I like laughed in like a minute, and it felt so healing and freeing, and and it's like in that moment I realized that like I don't know, like my family, it felt like a family, you know, like it felt like it's like the first time I've laughed with my family like in forever. Um, I've never really had like a real relationship with them. Um, until like after all this, where they had to like take care of me for like a whole like month and a half, and I was like I like during that month and a half I was just incapable of doing anything myself, eating, going to the bathroom. So after all that, um, I started like I realized that like during that time, after all that, like that God was with me during that whole time, and Jesus was walking next to me. And there were so many moments in that month, like even when I tried to like kill myself, where when like I would close my eyes, I would feel like I was okay and safe. And in those moments where um like I was truly like in the darkness and I didn't have anyone to turn to but God, I didn't know how to turn to him during that time, but I just knew he was with me, and I knew he was doing a restoration like in my heart and in my family. And it's funny because like when I was little and like going to church, my prayer request would always be like for my family, like for me to have a relationship with my family, um, for me to just feel like love in the family again and have it come together again and not be so broken. And I feel like God really answered that prayer, through that whole month of just like um, being with them and being unashamed of like everything, like my tattoos, or like I don't know what I've done, what I did, and asking like them for forgiveness and telling them I was sorry for being like such a bad daughter during that whole time. And like they're like, no, 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 like it was our fault. And it was just a very like during those moments there were so many conversations I don't even remember having, but I know I had with my dad especially and my mom, about just forgiveness, and it was so healing and freeing. So after that, like I started pursuing the Lord, but I was still like very very sensitive about all the spiritual like stuff because I just had so much so much information overload about it. So I gave myself a little bit of time, and I started going. I tried to go back to that one church that I went to before. I tried to like walk out, and very nice lady kept in touch with me during that time and prayed for me outside of the church. Um, and after that, like I started focusing on like what just started reflecting on my life and like my identity and what all the moments that God was like really with me, but I just took for granted because I had a lot of crazy like experiences that I shouldn't have done, but like were very dangerous. Um, and during that month, um, when you feel like you don't even know you're dead or alive, and every night you're just having you wake up and you don't know if you're dead or alive, and the whole month where everything feels so hopeless. Like the only hope I could find was in Christ. So that was like I don't know, that was like 3 4 months ago, and ever since then I've just been pursuing the Lord, and I realized that nothing else in my life truly matters except building the relationship with Him that I couldn't build for 20 years, and going forth with like a heart of gratitude and just knowing that every breath comes from Him, um, and how He's restored my family, and just completely helped me find my identity in Him, because without God, like I am truly like I'm truly nothing, and I would just revert back to the same person that I was, just running from all my problems and finding fulfillment in these other things about my identity, or just having that ego and anger towards my family. Um, yeah. Let me see if I had any more notes. But yeah, another thing that I want to share real quick is just about like the raving thing. Like that was something that I had a very internal struggle with breaking apart from, because I knew like it was I realized that it had a very like false sense of freedom and unity during that time. And um at the end of the day, like the people I knew that were in those scenes, and all the rave fams that I went through, um at the end of the day, like that lifestyle was just a way to escape from my problems, and inside I was hurting, and I was just trying to run away from reality. And it wasn't until like it was good, like I was good at maintaining all that stuff. I was good at um just convincing myself and trusting myself that it was good for me. But at the end of the day, like especially like in relationships, those problems would always come up. And once I just gave it all up, excuse me, to the Lord, um just this fulfillment I feel, and this like stable like identity I have in Christ um is so filled with like love. And there was healing in knowing who I am, and healing in knowing that my past had a purpose for the future, um that I don't even want to look that way anymore. um so yeah, one thing that recently happened that has kind of really grounded my faith, I guess. I'm still on um this journey of trying to get to know Christ better. But I was at a retreat the other weekend. It was like 2 weeks ago, and during that retreat, just being surrounded by uh, people who were curious, people who were on fire, just people who um, were open, had their hearts open to receiving his love, kind of set like a fire in my own heart. And I remember like on the second day, um, they had like early morning prayer, but I wanted to just pray by myself, just me and God. And I went out to the lake and I cried out to God. I was like, God, can you renew my, or can you break my heart so it can be renewed in you? And that's the only like specific prayer that I remember praying. And right after I started praying, like it started raining, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go back inside. But after I came back from that retreat, and my boyfriend at the time came back from a rave, he he was just like, I just knew something was up when he walked in. He ended up breaking up with me like on the spot, and I didn't realize that like until after I was done being a wreck, because during that time it was just so sudden, and I kind of let my emotions and my thoughts get to me. I just realized that after, like, I found so much peace and comfort in that God like answered my prayer so directly, um, that He broke my heart so that it could be restored and renewed in God, and He knew that it was the best for me, and just having full like on trust and surrenderance and His plans for me and His plans for my ex just gives me a lot of hope and so much fulfillment in my heart. And during this time, I'm able to really focus on my relationship with Jesus, and it's just me and my dog Jesus during this time. And yeah, there's just nothing but like opportunity and happiness and hopes that I could spread this message. And I gave that testimony like last week on Thursday to like this large group that I'm attending, and some people came up to me and told me that they were able to relate to it and that was free. And I don't know, it just made me so like happy that like um that there's so many things that like people are struggling with and that people are trying to maintain, and it's so tiring like trying to do it yourself and trying to like read all these self-help books. I used to do that when I like go through breakups and look for the answer everywhere except the answer that was right next to me, and except for the word of God, which is so stable, but my emotions like weren't, and my thoughts were so unchanging, and or so, my thoughts were so like changing and unstable, and every time I followed them it would just lead to like, I don't know, self-harm or like stuff like that. Yeah, I don't want to go too deep into it, but yeah, it's just been all chill and smooth sailing and fulfilling and awesome positive since then. And I'm watching this back, but I want to add that I am just so thankful to God after realizing that if I kept on going down this pathway of just trying to get like the highest high I could by mixing stuff, um, it would not end well. It would definitely not end well. It would end in some kind of addiction. I was addicted to Nick. I was like the biggest chiefer ever, and I went from always asking to tap it to like just completely like going cold turkey, which is crazy too. And like I still don't believe it, but it was only through the heart, the new heart that God gave me, and it was only through like, yeah, it was only through Him that I was able to accomplish these things. So all glory to the top G above, for real. And yeah, I'm just so thankful he um he put he didn't let it he didn't let me go down that pathway um until it was too late, and until my heart was like too hardened. I think also I want to say, like, you don't have to have like a crazy testimony like I did. God met me where I was, and Jesus met me, held my hand where I was, because He knew that that's what I needed for me to go to Him and completely surrender my life to Him. I had a very hardened heart. Had a really big ego, and just was going towards just a lot of new age beliefs and ideologies, and just not looking that way at all. So it's what I needed for sure, and he met me in the way that he knew was right for me. So yeah. I also want to say that I just think like God's timing is just so like it just leaves me in awe because when I explained in the beginning how the person I went to like my first rave with was the girl like I roomed with. She's the reason why that I got involved in this like Christian community at UW, and she was actually started leading a small group around the same time when I came back to school. So that time it was crazy because she saw my testimony that I posted like a little bit on my main, and she invited me to the small group, and without that like I wouldn't have met this community and be able to share my testimony with them and be able to also go to like that retreats where God answered my prayer in a way that he knew was best for me. So yeah, I keep adding stuff in, but I fell asleep while I was watching my testimony, but I don't know if I said this, but I'm gonna say it because I don't know if I said it, but there's just so much comfort in knowing and having faith that God is working and that he's working in my life and that he's working in the lives of people that are in my heart, and just having faith in that is just so freeing because at the end of the day like my whole kind of personality, I guess people know me as okay, I don't know about that, but like my whole like thing was like I love putting people on, like I love putting people on like music or like just experiences like raving, but this is something like I want to put people on, like I want to put people on this true feeling of like of happiness and like fulfillment, and just knowing that it's all in God's hands and he's working in your life. And you just gotta open up your heart a little bit